What's going on, Commonwealth, and welcome back to another great episode of the Bluegrass Soccer Cast, your home, of course, for all things soccer right here in the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm Jimmy, that's John, and this week, yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. I'm wearing glasses for those who are watching this live stream. Am and always will be a contact guy, but when you drop your last pair of contacts on the bathroom floor at work, you don't put them back in your eyes. So it's glasses for a couple weeks for me. John, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jimmy. How are you besides messing up your glasses or your contacts?
I'm swell. It has been another great week for soccer in the Commonwealth, and to keep watching and keep reporting on it has been amazing. So, two questions to start this week for you, John. One, what kind of chips? Always got to ask. Doritos, classic Doritos. And then let's do our.
Here's my question for you.
Oh, I get the question this week.
No, I've ran into this issue with Doritos.
Okay.
What do you because you just called those classic. I've ran into people that consider Cool Ranch as the classic original.
No, the original is nacho cheese. Like I'm quite positive.
Thank you. To me, that is. I've had people swear up and down. It's like, no, it's Cool Ranch. It's the normal flavor. I was like, Cool Ranch is not the normal flavor.
No, I mean, without doing the research, obviously, like I'm pretty sure Cool Ranch came around significantly after. I mean, Doritos probably happened in the 80s or so, something like that. Maybe the 90s, at like the early 90s. And I feel like Cool Ranch came in definitely late 90s, early 2000s. So maybe that's what people had at their house. So therefore, they called it the original flavor. But I really think that the nacho cheese Dorito was the original. And I'm really glad people are joining us for 66. Wow. Well, thank everybody for joining us for Chip Talk this week. No, I'm just kidding.
Cool Ranch came around in 86.
Okay, so I was a little off on my timing, but still, almost 20 years difference. John, I want to hit you with another one of those random icebreakers. I have no idea what it's going to be, and I'm going to hit now. Which superpower do you want? You only get one.
See, I hate this question because here's the thing.
Good.
If you think about it, there's no superhero that exists that just has one superpower. The only ones I can think of are like the X-Men, who have like just their one mutant ability. But there's no like solo hero that's just like one ability. Because like Spider-Man, he's got
agility,
depending on Spider-Man, depending on which Spider-Man you do, he has web shooters. Some are natural, some aren't. That was famously a joke in the new Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
The wall crawling, super strength, all that type of stuff. Superman has like every power under the sun. They just keep throwing.
Superman is trash and is overrated.
Honestly, if I had to pick one like right now that I think actually would be pretty dope to have, it would be teleportation.
I always go between two. Teleportation is one of them, just because it would just be the ability to instantly get to where I need to, so I could sleep in another 2 or 3 minutes, and still be at work on time.
Sleep in. Or don't have to have a car. Don't have to spend money on gas.
The other one, and the answer that I would give is back to X-Men as your example there. I would do wings, like big angel the superhero, angel wings. That would be my one superpower, because like the ability to just fly yourself wherever would be amazing.
Yeah, but Angel can't like hide his wings. They're just there, and his wings are huge.
Yeah, I mean, I would be all about it. That would.
I feel like in America you get shot out of the sky.
Maybe that's in
They
the new
used a
Marvel
fire
version of
jet.
X-Men.
They used a fire jet to take out that Chinese spy balloon. They're gonna.
They're gonna use that space laser to come after me, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for answering the question of the week there, John. And for everyone else at home, we have a stuffed episode this week. We don't really have an off the top topic this week because we took Monday off, and we're just going to take a massive deep dive into the bottom line for this week, and we're going to talk through all of the action from this past weekend and preview everything that's happening this coming week and weekend. And John, there are some matches happening tonight, correct?
Yes, and luckily because we are East/Central time, they're all happening later.
Later, right?
Lex will play Noco tonight at 9 p.m. at Noco, and Racing will is out in Seattle playing Neil Rain at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and then 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m.
10 p.m.
Central is when. Which I will say that there's times I
Man.
deal with people that complain like, "Oh, this is what's wrong with sports is these 10 o'clock starts on the East Coast." I'm like, that is 7 o'clock there.
Right. That is literally the optimal time to start.
You're saying those fans should have to if it's a midweek match like this one is, should figure out their work day, because that's a 7 p.m. start on the East Coast, a 4 p.m. start on the West Coast. That they just have to
right.
And then that for soccer especially, that's playing in the middle of the day, like peak heat. No,
I'm not about that life. I want the West Coast fans or East Coast fans, no Coast fans. Like, you should be able to watch your team in prime time in your neighborhood, right? So if that's 7 o'clock on the West Coast, let's do it.
I like how at least USL does it. It's always 7 p.m. There's occasional the 7:30 kickoff type thing, or maybe a little earlier. They've had some mid-afternoon games they did, but typically on Saturday they kick off at 7 p.m. local time. So wherever the game is happening, it's 7
That Lexington game a couple of weeks ago at Fuego, I guess it was over a month ago at this point. What time was that? I feel like that was
10
was
p.m.
it really?
Eastern. Yeah, that's because Fuego is in Fresno, California.
I thought for some reason it was still at like 7 Eastern, and that's why it was so hot.
It was late. Or it might have been a little earlier.
I just remember being light, like very light when they started.
It might have been. It was also in the middle of the summer, like mid-July.
True. Good point. Yeah. So it could have been 7 o'clock and still been middle of the day almost.
Yeah. Plus we are in the you're in earlier part of Central Time. Lexington
almost the earliest.
In the western part of the Eastern Standard Time, so the sun sets way later than normal. Because
I have a story about
New York.
Yeah, so it's like trying to match that time is really weird, right? So when I was in grad school outside of Chicago, my wife had a friend down in Texas, and all the way on like the far, western side of Texas, and it's the same time zone, but it would be pitch black outside of Chicago, and down there it would be like moderately lit still. Like, it wasn't even dark yet. Like, it was still very well lit. It was just interesting to see that. But
that's the weirdest thing with that I don't get about Chattanooga, because Chattanooga is right on the border.
Mm-hmm.
And
or E-Town here.
Is E-Town right on the border?
Yeah, E-Town, the border is, you're coming from Lexington, you hit it before E-Town, or if you're going when we go to Louisville, up to Louisville, you cross the time zone after E-Town.
That's right. I was looking at the trip for y'all, and it's a straight north shot a little bit, and you go a little bit east. And I was like, "But you're in a separate time zone."
Right. Yeah. So Lexington, Louisville in that Eastern time zone. E-Town in Central. No, wait. Eastern. Yeah, E-Town is in Eastern. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm just confusing myself now. Anyways, enough of all of that. Speaking of E-Town, Lexington, Louisville, let's dive into our action from this past weekend. John, let's go and start with the game we were actually at, where Racing Louisville knocked off the number one seed in all of the NWSL, the Portland Thorns, with a scoreline of 2-1. This was a fantastic showing by Racing Louisville because they were out a lot of their main players. They were down up to 8 players from the previous week's match. And that included stars like Savannah DeMillo, Carson Pickett, and others. But they were still able to be very competitive. They were very aggressive. They had way more shots on goal, and they were the better team that night. And I give it to one player. She won player of the match for it, and that's Thimby.
She won
She was
league
on fire.
player of the
Yeah,
week,
she was the league player of the night. Yeah,
which is sponsored by Bud Light, which I find hilarious with all the stuff that's happened with Bud Light recently. Granted, the NWSL, because women's soccer is the players are very pro LGBTQ. So
right.
women's soccer is very much that way. I want to know, when did the deal with Bud Light happen? Because the whole timeline with the fallout with conservative people is weird for me. But when did it happen of like, Bud Light's, we're going to sponsor the player of the week for the NWSL, and then the whole like transgender whatever that caused the fallout for people to literally just chuck their Bud Light.
I think it was just because, Bud Light had like rainbow cans. I don't even think it was a stance really that they had.
Yeah.
And a bunch of stuff. But anyways, so it was a magical performance by Racing Louisville. Now, there is one note that I have to put in here as well. Portland was on the last match of a 2-week East Coast trip. So this was, I believe, their 4th match in 2 weeks on the East Coast, 3rd or 4th.
Yep, and they were down Sophia Smith, who is the only U.S. women player to get Ballon d'Or nomination,
which is
Ballon d'Or Feminine nomination. I will say that's the weirdest thing about the Ballon d'Or Feminine is that it has come down to like Alex Morgan and stuff, but a U.S. player has not yet won it. Granted, it's come kind of towards the end of this, but I was like, is there a little European bias? Because for a while, and for those who don't know,
I do not. Please tell me.
Until about the mid 2000s, no, it was the mid 90s. You had to be a European player to win the Ballon d'Or.
To even be considered? Wow.
Yes, and then George Weah, Tim Weah's dad, was the first non-European to win it, the only African player to win it. But that was when the rule changed to you had to be playing in Europe to win the Ballon d'Or. And didn't change until like 2007, 2008 is when it became any player ever. And so some people go, well, have you ever seen someone in MLS win? It's like, no, because right when they changed the rule was the Messi Ronaldo dominance. Yeah. With like sprinkle of Luka Modric in the middle of all that. That's why no one else has won it.
It was a great result for Racing, but there are those two factors that we mentioned. Long East Coast trip for Portland, no Sophia Smith, and Portland is also getting ready for the Challenge Cup, right? Like they are also playing, they're in the quarterfinals as well, I believe.
Semifinals.
So not to diminish anything from Racing, but those are some facts you have to acknowledge, right? So, John, kind of my notes here before I turn it over to you to talk about your thoughts on the game. Racing Louisville, again, historic victory. First time that they've beaten Portland. First time of beating the number one team in the league. Beautiful goals by Abby Eckert and Thimby in the second half, which really fueled them to the home upset. The crowd was great. It was really nice to be there and to feel the energy in the stadium, especially in the second half. The start of the game, Racing was out there and was killing it. They were getting a lot of chances. But then, Katie Lund had a small mistake, and Portland is too good of a team to make any kind of mistake against, and they punished it, got that goal, but it was great to see them fight back. The result did move them temporarily into the playoffs. Then, there was a game on Sunday with the OL Reign and Orlando Pride that bumped Racing back out to 7th place. But they're prime for a playoff position. They are definitely in this fight. John, kind of from your perspective, what did you see?
I saw a side that we said, and also people on Butchertown Rundown said, needs to show up and show they can attack.
And they did. They absolutely did.
Yes, and they finally did. This side, there was and especially those who watched the game, there's very much difference between the first and second half. Mm-hmm. Honestly, Racing dominated the majority of the game. There was just that error by Lund, which some people don't call an error by Lund because she shouldn't have gotten the pass, yada yada.
But it was off her.
She got the pass to her. Yep. She didn't get rid of it. That is on Lund. Whether or not, she shouldn't have gotten the pass. That doesn't matter.
Right.
That doesn't matter. She should be able to. She had plenty of time to get rid of it, in my opinion. Rewatching it. So, but anyways, they truly dominated the game offensively, and it was defensively that they really got better in the second half. So they're showing this fight, and they've released this from Eckert. This video of it was either a halftime, pregame, something like that of Eckersley, telling them how much, asking how much do you want it.
Mm-hmm. I heard about it. I haven't seen it yet.
It's on their Twitter. How much do you want want to win? How many more games do you want to play? She said this in the post-match interview as well. How many more games do you want to play? Do you want to be packing up at the end of the season, or do you want to be playing more games? And they seem to be responding well. And I think just from this match, missing those key players, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this, how Coach Kim responds to this, because they played very well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying this is going to happen. Does Dembélé and Pickett have more of a reduced role because of how well they play? Now they're going to miss Shang because she got called up for the Asian Cup, which you're playing the Asian Cup not even a month. It hasn't been a month. It has not been a month since the World Cup ended. What are you doing, Asia? I digress.
Well, I wonder if it was something like, how the Gold Cup, they do 2 of them, and if 2 different countries win them, then, they face off to see who gets the auto bid or something. I thought it was something like that, maybe.
That might be it. I didn't look into it. I just saw that she was up for it because there is some games coming this month. But I think the NWSL South Africa, is taking USA. An international break. It's like those random one-off weeks of international friendlies where they play 2 games in a week, and the league, the Premier League, it does this too. They'll take just a week off for it. It's not anything big. That could be what it is, but
yeah, and I mean, like I said, Team USA is playing South Africa, and at least twice. I feel like they played them on back-to-back games, something like that.
That I don't agree with. I get it.
That's a bit odd.
Travel reasons, but there's no need to play back-to-back countries.
Could you play USA Canada or USA Mexico, maybe. USA Cuba? Just
that's typically that's what we see the U.S. do. They'll play one European team, and then they'll play a Central American team or something like that.
Yeah.
That's who they're playing. When the men do that, right? They're playing.
Yeah, they're playing. Uganda.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who they. I know they play Ghana in November.
That might be it.
We can look it up here in a second. But John, you brought up a really good point there, and that was something that I meant to mention, but I forgot. What is Savannah DeMillo's role? What is Carson Pickett's role? Two players who have both played for Team USA. What is their role in racing Louisville right now? Because it seems the team might be better when they don't start and or play. Because you go back to that run during the Challenge Cup. Yes, Carson Pickett was there, but DeMillo wasn't. And that was probably the best soccer we've seen from racing all year.
I don't know about that. Solely because one, every team was depleted of their World Cup stars. Pickett did play well.
Kinda. I mean, not nearly as much as racing Louisville. Like they were losing one or two people
in the Challenge Cup. And like you said, Portland was on this road trip. And was missing their star. Like they had just lost Sophia Smith in the previous match. So I think we'll see how this game goes for the Challenge Cup. But I'm also curious if Coach Kim is fully committing to the Challenge Cup, or is he all in on the playoff? I don't see him not going all in, but could he be choosing to play Pickett for the Challenge Cup and then DeMillo on Saturday or something along the lines? Like it's not full on breasting Themby and all that type of stuff, but maybe one or two people. That's where you bring in an academy player or that sort of thing.
So, question about, and sorry, I'm getting a bit jumbled in my brain over here. So it is the U.S. women's team does play South Africa twice, September 21st and then again September 24th. Don't remember the two locations. I know one is Chicago, but I can't remember the other. So in that, Kanu she was on the roster for South Africa, but I haven't seen anything. Yeah, isn't that who plays for South Africa? Themby?
Oh, Kanu plays for Nigeria.
Nigeria. Never mind. My apologies. But I haven't seen Themby. Like I haven't heard anything from racing that says that she's out on leave.
That I don't think they'll start though if they're not playing. If they're not playing for like 15 days.
Good point, I guess. Yeah, that would be a long camp. Yeah, and then the USA plays Uzbekistan. That's who it was. And Oman in September. And then I know they play two more in October. The one in Nashville is Ghana, and I can't remember who the other one was. What you gonna do when Team USA runs all over you?
Well, Hulk Hogan should run all over those teams.
We should. But so anyways there, John, with Racing Louisville, a good performance on Saturday. I had a great time. What was it like for you, John? You know, your first kind of media side of things at Lynn Family Stadium. What was that experience like for you?
It was nice. It was just a very nice stadium. It's very interesting how the seating is set up there. Because on the outside it looks like a big stadium, because a lot of stadiums you enter mid-level and it's like, because it's like dug down, but and you see this on TV, their lower level seating is not big in terms of like how much it is. It's like maybe 5-6 rows. But then the rest of it is like, it's really good. I would say the one bad thing I've heard this is the sun, because it's literally sets into the stadium.
Yeah, it looks nice on TV and it's pretty nice from the press box, but you know, for our producer, our photographer, I feel bad for you, man. Thanks for all your great photos. Appreciate your work. So it was a good showing.
Some note of thing, Kimball Jackson, who got his first league, USL League One view playing time, and the Greenville match is now in the starting 11 for tonight.
Oh,
and that's
for
because
Lexington.
I think that's to offset Tariq Mohammed, who's out due to yellow card accumulation.
Well, we'll pick up on that here in just a second, especially before they kick off here in the next 30 minutes or so. I want to do a preview of Racing Louisville again tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. They head to Seattle to play the OL Reign in the Challenge Cup semifinals. Louisville enters with a really good chance to make another upset of a team from the Northwest. Had to really think about it for a second after beating Portland over the last weekend. But I really think that they have a great opportunity and they've got some momentum here to beat the Reign again, or for the first time, I should say, this season after drawing with them earlier in the season. With the win, they would move into the Challenge Cup final, obviously, for the first time in club history. And I think they're going to do it. I'm going to go Racing Louisville 2, Reign 1. I think we got it in the bag this time. Let's go get ready for a championship game, maybe at home.
And I am kind of agreeing with you on that. Last I checked,
I think they're the 4 seed. It wouldn't be at home.
Yeah. No, it's highly unlikely. I think it's at home. But the OL Reign did win in their last match on Sunday, but I think that turnaround is too much for them because that's literally 2 days.
Yep.
And I think I don't know. The Racing's crew has told us they weren't allowed to practice on Sunday because of the Challenge Cup. So I'm curious if that was just because the OL were playing a game on Sunday that they weren't allowed to practice Sunday. I don't.
That almost feels like an advantage, right?
I don't know necessarily how that works, or did the OL have to take Monday off? And then
I'm sure they did, irregardless if they wanted to or not.
Yeah, so we'll see what it is. I just don't think with such a quick turnaround that they're going to really do it. The Racing will pull it off, I think.
Now, the game, I wrote about this. So, very interestingly, in the semifinals and in the final of the Challenge Cup, it's the same like overtime rules that we had in the Leagues Cup, where there's no extra time. We're jumping straight to PKs. So, I think if it gets to
Which
PKs,
is stupid.
Yeah, but
at least
I understand it's not traditional.
One half of extra time. At least do one half of extra time. That's just me. The going straight to PKs I find really weird. I get it.
I agree with you, but like it's more palatable to Americans. I feel like, at least on TV, to go straight to PKs.
It's more palatable to Americans. There was straight comments on Lexington's first home game, which they drawed 0-0 to Madison, when they posted the final score, and people were like, "Why didn't you go to PKs? Why no PKs?" Like,
oh gosh,
because you don't.
It's
not
a league
every
match.
game is win or lose in soccer.
Yes,
and that proves you don't even watch the World Cup. You only watch like the knockout stage of the World Cup,
or the highlights or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're both picking Racing for the victory. Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So we appreciate all the folks who work for Racing Louisville and for getting us into the stadium and stuff like that. I really appreciate all of that. It was a really good time, and we look forward to going back again. But John, let's head over to Lexington from last Friday night, where those pesky Greenville Triumph stole a victory from the Lexington Sporting Club in drawing 1-1 in heartbreaking fashion. Lexington Sporting Club conceded a goal in stoppage time to Greenville. It was the 97th minute, I think, or something like that. And John, you were right there in front of the goal scorer, Talk to us about what happened there.
You mean when he was celebrating?
Yeah, he was looking
he
right
was
at you.
doing. Listen, I'm okay with those celebrations. All honesty,
But he was right in your face.
yeah, and it took some willpower not to like say anything to him or do anything, but like I get it.
Bless
I
you.
would do the same thing to an away fans that you literally just silenced. Granted, we were already silent because we, at least the Railbirds, we like to keep quiet on opposite teams' set pieces so the guys can hear each other. Or like Knight can clearly communicate with the team and stuff. We're not like drumming and all that stuff.
I would be. I'd be all kind, especially with that corner kick right in front of you all. Oh, I'd have been like
Well,
as
we do that.
loud as
We
I
do that
could. The
for
whole stadium
we do
going.
that for Lex teams. I can talk with Stockley if he wants us to start doing that for away teams. I just don't want to pump them up because the guys say that pumps them. Well, I don't want them to go like, "Oh, okay."
All right, that's fair then. That's fair.
But it happens. They're not the first team to do it. They won't be the last.
Right.
The guy came flying in. Greenville's keeper kind of made it difficult I believe, for Knight to make the save. Now I'm telling you right now, people, he still got team of the week, and that just proves Knight got the starting keeper.
Thank you. I was like,
the week.
who got it?
And that just proves like how hard some shots are to stop. In this run, Knight has gone. That would have been a
world-class save.
Knight has gone 3 matches, only allowing 2 goals. Both goals being hard, next to impossible to stop goals. That just happens, people. It's not on anybody's part. It's on the defense. There's sometimes people just make a good goal. That guy came streaking in. It had been really hard for anyone to stop him if he got his head on the ball. It really would have only been on him to have his head at a weird angle or something. But that happens. And it, like, yes, is it disappointing? Is it a gut punch? Yes. But it's not like the players or anybody's fault that it happened. That Lexington played really well. If anything, you can put a little bit on the rest because there was, in my opinion, there was not 7 minutes of stoppage time in the second half.
With the goal scored and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't see there were 7 minutes. And I also, at the start of that, of stoppage time, Tate got hurt. Or came out of the game or something like that. That took about a good 2 minutes away, and they did not add that on.
Tate Robertson, the goal scorer from the 49th minute.
The world-class goal scorer, which I believe he was trying to cross it, but...
Oh, he definitely was trying to cross it. Like, from sitting on my couch and watching it, looked like he was definitely trying to cross it, and boom, it went in. Oops. But you know, Greenville really applied a lot of high pressure on Lexington, especially in the second half, taking 11 shots, 4 of those on target. But the defense held tight, right? You know, Emil Knight played great. You know, that last moment without being an outstanding performance by Greenville. God, I can't believe I just said that sentence. Can I take it back? Can we wind that back? Cut that part out. Eat crow, Greenville.
Literally, the thing is with Greenville, and a lot of people said this.
They're trash.
That some people tried to say Lex was like parking the bus, and no, they were not. At least from what I was saying, because Greenville
maybe really late.
Late they were, but that's because they were tired and stuff,
and they were up.
When you hit stoppage time like that, you try to go for a goal, but you're more like, we need to prevent the goal at this point and try to get a second.
Right.
But for Greenville is a heavy counterattacking side, so you can't just do an all-out attack when you're up 1 goal, because that's what they want you to do. Any side that plays their primary attack is through counterattacking. They are wanting you to go all in. They are baiting you to do that, and then they're gonna attack. And that's kind of why Lexington weren't as aggressive when Greenville had the ball, because Greenville's not good at necessarily controlling the ball. They're quick. Mm-hmm. If you slow down their attack, they have nothing.
Right.
So that's just how it is. It's what's the struggles I've realized with a first year club is just the amount of people that don't understand stuff and think it's like so straightforward. Like the people soccer fans deal with this all the time. Like people think it's so easy to score a goal. Like look how big the net is. Like it's not as simple as it looks, especially like your foot is a little off. It could change where it goes.
And that's with no one around you. Like if you're just trying to take a PK and you mishit it, you're not hitting that giant net. Like it's not as easy as you might think.
And a proper keeper it can cover the entire net basically if they want it to.
And Emil Knight is that kind of keeper.
Yeah. It's not like hard. It's not like virtually impossible for a person to cover the whole net. It's not.
So it was a great performance by Knight. Again, that last moment not standing. Coach Stockley was furious with the referee. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Sorry, John.
It was a great performance by everyone. We've seen this with everything the league has put out, everything other people have put out. Lexington has moved up because Greenville is a playoff side and all that jazz. Like this is not drawing to Fuego.
Oh dear God! Don't even say it.
You know what I mean? This is not drawing to Chattanooga. This is
dear God, no.
Nearly winning, but having just a goal at the end, bring it to a draw against a playoff team that's one of the more historically good teams in the league. Like Greenville has a star. They have won the league.
Somehow they must have been playing against a bunch of plumbers and somehow lucked into a star.
So it's just
I'm waiting for the hate. Like I have been trashing on Greenville for like a whole season, and I don't
think a Greenville fan is just gonna be like, well, I wonder what this Kentucky-based podcast that only talks about Kentucky soccer is gonna say about us.
Greenville doesn't have fans, as far as I'm concerned. Close the franchise, move it somewhere else.
They got one particular
change the colors
who works for the side who's active on Twitter named Gio, who's a crazy man himself.
Tell your club to change their name and move. Triumph somewhere else.
We need to tell Gio that he needs to take some of his controversial opinions and be quiet.
Yeah.
He recently tweeted out like he doesn't like mac and cheese or like any pasta.
The hell is wrong with you,
exactly.
Gio? Pasta
Which
is
I will
life,
say that
bro.
is the dumbest. That is like the dumbest thing I've seen with supporter groups will do during a match week. Is like Omaha did this. They're like fried chicken's not good, and like Omaha Parliament was like, listen. I understand. I get it, but at the same time, you sound like a crazy person.
I can enter this game and I can end this game. Hey, Greenville, fried green tomatoes, overrated.
Is that a Greenville thing?
I don't know. It just feels very South Carolina. Here's another one. Pimento cheese. It's pretty good. Yeah, I like pimento cheese.
I don't like it.
Oh, you heard it. John said pimento cheese.
My wife is obsessed with it. I didn't say it was overrated. I just said I don't like it. My wife is obsessed with it.
I heard it. We can clip it to say where you said it was overrated. Anyways, speaking of being furious, Coach Stockley was quite peeved at the officials at the end of the game, having what seemed like, at least on TV, a very heated exchange after the final whistle. did you see anything from it, John? There were some questionable fouls and cards that were issued throughout the game. What was Coach
So from
Stockley talking
what
about?
I was seeing, I don't know what he was talking about. His back was to me when he was talking with the rest, so I could tell that he was having a conversation, but couldn't tell exactly what he was doing. But to me, this ref called very much based on possession. So there's a weird thing in soccer. It's kind of going away, but it's still around sometimes. And this is especially if you watch like old 1980s soccer or even like 70s soccer. If the team gets fouled but they keep possession, it's no foul. It's like, oh, you still have the ball. It's fine. Move on. Keep going. And that's very much how this felt like. It was like there was literally I tried to find it for my write-up, but I couldn't find the exact timestamp. But there was a run that Khalid made late where he literally had a player like grabbing onto him, but because he's just so big and had kind of more the extra step, he wasn't losing the ball. But he was very much struggling to move forward because of this player. I was like, that is a foul. He's like impeding his movement, and it's not shoulder to shoulder. You can see his arms. But she's like, no foul. Keep going. And I don't agree with that. Because I just don't think that's it. Like, oh, you keep possession, you're keeping control of the ball, no foul. Like, that's stupid. It's very much a foul. Let it call a foul. If it's like close, I get it. But if there's like legit fouls, you should call them.
Yes, I agree. And then from watching it on TV, there were a couple of those incidences, and I think even the very last play for Lexington was like that kick out of bounds that would have been a throw in, but the whistle was blown. Had a little bit of that to it. It was kind of strange. It reminded me of another. I'll save that for another show. I have a hot take about Pele, but we'll get there on another episode. It looked like an older version of the sport. It did not have the same impact as you would see today, where Messi or whoever gets a little tap and weep, yellow card or something like that. So
funny enough about Pele, the reason Pele was so good is because when he grew up playing soccer, Brazil was still racist, and so there was literally rules where they're like, yeah, black players can play. You don't get fouls called on you. So you could literally basically swing your elbow into an Afro Brazilian, no call, foul. But if they did it back, it's a foul. So that's why like Garnacho and Pele were so good with the ball, and that's where we get this more Brazilian, like they're really good with the ball because they had to be. They had to be because they were going to get pushed, shoved, cleated, all of it, just because of the racism that existed.
I mean, it's a terrible story, told well, but totally terrible that it had that it was that way.
That's why, like, I forget what they're called, but like Brazil poverty is where like 50% of Brazilian soccer players or those who play for the national team come from. They come from like the slums, like, poor. This would be like them coming from like deep in Appalachia, like a large majority of like American players coming from
like they came from Middlesbrough or something like that,
or inner cities, like stricken poverty type stuff, which can't happen in America with pay to play. But that's why it's like an unbalanced amount come from these areas, and it's because of it creates imagination. Like they have to learn to be good.
So here's my hot take on Pele, right? Like, yeah, he was good. Great story. Love it. Glad he came to America and played for the New York Cosmos when he did. But let's also be honest. Like, most of the people that he was playing against were like plumbers, carpenters, bankers. Like, they weren't world-class athletes like we have today. You put him out there today, you know who Pele is in today's game? Thierry Henry.
That's not a knock. Thierry Henry is one of the better players of this generation.
Better, not greatest of all time, though. Nobody is going to say Thierry Henry is the greatest player of all time. And if you do, you're wrong. Because it's Messi, and I don't want to hear it.
Well, yeah, I don't think I think it's just so different. The game has changed so much. Like if you look at the Cruyff turn in the '70s was like, oh my gosh. But if you actually look at the Cruyff turn, like if a kid spends enough time on it, a 7-year-old could do the Cruyff turn. Yeah. It's not that complicated.
Right.
But it was like, oh my gosh, when he did it in like the '72 World Cup.
Yeah. And we have somebody else entering here. No, CR7, you is not the GOAT. Nope. Not at all. He is not as good as Messi. He's not as good as Zlatan even.
Okay.
You're talking about third
Ronaldo
best.
Ronaldo is better than Zlatan.
How?
Does Zlatan have a Champions League or any major trophy?
How many did he but how many chances did he really have?
He played at PSG. He was in the Champions League every year. He played at Milan. He played at Manchester United. He played at Barca with Messi. He played at Inter when Mourinho was there. Zlatan had the chances.
Zlatan is especially great. With PSG, right? Like with PSG, how many championships did even Messi was he able to deliver to PSG?
Messi was only at PSG for a year.
He was only there for a year? I thought it was like 2 or 3.
It was like a year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
But because that's they made, I believe they made the Champions League semifinal. But I also believe PSG is cursed. So
okay, so Zlatan, if you had put him on Manchester United, Manchester City, Everton,
he played on Manchester
Fullerton,
United.
But no, like with like the full complement, back in like the early 2000s when they were rolling, right? Like, yeah, they're winning the championship. He didn't have the team around him, and yet he was still so successful. We are getting way off topic here, and I'm going to pull us back. This is a whole episode. Who is the greatest of all time? We'll do that sometime this winter. But pulling it back to Lexington, John, they are, 15 minutes or so from kickoff. With their next matchup, which is at Northern Colorado. And John, Northern Colorado's got to have revenge on the mind after what happened a few weeks ago up there where Lexington took the 4-3 victory.
Yes, that NoCo definitely has revenge on their mind. NoCo is in better form than the last time they faced. This is going to be a very interesting matchup because we're getting down the stretch, and NoCo has stumbled, yes, and they've kind of recovered as of late, but Lexington is much better. They are way better. They only have like 2 losses over 7 or 8 matches. They're firing on all cylinders. I am curious because NoCo's offense has slumped a little bit. Their defense has gotten a little streaky. I am curious, but Lex offense is also
they've been very streaky as well.
So I'm very curious to how this goes because it's a midweek matchup. And I was attempting to watch Omaha, North Carolina, which Omaha is going for the USL 1 record for 7 straight wins. They are currently tied with North Carolina 1-1. They had scored the opener and then a minute later gave up the equalizer to North Carolina. Midweek games are weird.
Yep.
They are very, very weird.
And so I think this gets to the heart of what I think is going to happen tonight. I think Northern Colorado, their offense has been, like you said, John, very streaky. And I think Lexington is going to come back up there and play with their hair on fire. Because what do they have to lose, right? Like with the draw with Greenville, like I think Lexington, you can officially put your dreams of making the playoffs in your first year, you can put that behind you. It's not going to happen. Mathematically, it may technically still be possible, but it's not going to happen. So now it's time to go out, and you have no pressure to play with. Like, there is nobody that you have to beat. There's no result you have to get. Now you're just playing for yourself and for pride. And I think Lexington is going to come out there with their hair on fire. Coach Stockley is going to be getting the guys to prove that what happened a few weeks ago is no fluke. They've got the bones to be a playoff team. They've got what it takes to beat playoff teams, like what they basically did with Greenville. And then they just let in a goofy one late. And I think Lexington's going in. I think they're going to walk out with another victory from Northern Colorado.
I can see that, especially with Diouf owns Colorado.
Yes, he does.
He has scored 5 official. He has scored 7. He has put the ball in the back of the net 7 times against NoCo. Officially 5, but he has physically put the ball in 7. He had the offside game winner back in early June, called off for being offsides, and then he had that weird handball goal, which Tate being man he was, got it back for us, but he had that handball goal that was called back for some reason in the comeback win. So it would be very interesting. I think also they're playing more defensive because at least from the lineup they released, it looks like they're going back to a 4-4-2. And I think
Good
that
spot.
was because we've lost Mohammed. Now, we could still be doing a 3-5-2 because I don't really know how Jackson does. How well Jackson plays fully in his style. I'm not saying how well he plays in his style, because now granted, Jackson's not coming into this with barely any game experience. He does play for the academy side, the U23 side. He does get like game action. Granted, that's against younger people and less top level, but he still is getting action. So we'll see. Is he like Mohammed? I hope so. If not, it's okay. He is playing he's playing as a fullback or wing back, opposite of Green, where typically Mohammed plays. So they could still be keeping their 3-5-2. I need to see how it goes, but it looks like a 4-4-2. So we'll see.
Well, and when you look at Jackson, you look at a lot of the younger, they're older, but they're still youth players, right? I really hope that they are getting the time in training and they got time in League 2 or wherever they were playing to really develop, because they've got talent coming up, right? Like, Jackson's pretty good from all accounts, right? So I just hope that they're getting the opportunity to play at high level competition and in high level positions to get ready for this kind of a situation. Sorry.
Jackson's really good. We saw him go toe to toe with Lou City in the Open Cup.
Yep.
Granted,
and played
Lou
well.
Wasn't necessarily putting in their entire full-fledged lineup, but that's still like championship level players for a 18-year-old at the time. He's 19 now. I'm curious to see if we'll see Josh Head in either of these 2 matchups. We've only really seen Diallo. I think he appeared. Yeah, he appeared in the first game against Knox at the very end, like the first game of the season. I don't think we've seen him since. And they're really the young guys. The other one is Luke Phillips, which will be curious how he does. He's a keeper, though, so goalkeepers are really weird on how you handle a young keeper. Like, it's really weird on how you handle them. So that's why keeper is much older when they solidify themselves as a starter, just because it's so hard to.
Well, and there's usually an incumbent. You're very rarely coming into a situation where you're the guy. Especially at a young age.
Well, and that and then keeper is the most. I would say the most superstitious position for coaches. he's playing solid. He's letting 1 or 2 goals. Let's see if we can tweak some other stuff before we tweak the keeper situation. I feel like keeper is it truly has to be bad goalkeeping, or it has to be I have tried everything else.
Multiple mistakes.
Yeah, it's either multiple mistakes or I've tried everything else. Either because it's going to be hard for me to decide to change.
So I'm taking them for the win. John, are you taking Lexington tonight for the victory as well?
Yes, I am. I'm thinking, especially because Trevor Amon already finally set the record broke the record for USL League One goals scored in a season. I think that takes some pressure off of him a little bit, and it might be he might start distributing goals more. We'll see. And also I think Knight is out to prove something because he played a little shaky last time against NoCo. I'm thinking 2-1 Lex.
3-0. I'm going blowout.
Oh,
I don't think it's gonna be close. I'm going blowout. Don't take my advice to the casino, please. Do not. You all know my track record. But this is not the only matchup for Lexington this weekend, or this week, because they also then head out to the Central Valley to take on Fuego again.
Yep, and that's again Sunday night.
Yep, Sunday night, 10 o'clock kickoff. So another late night matchup for Lexington. Not as bad here in the Central Time Zone, but still pretty late. Especially because Sunday is the first day of the NFL season as well. So be very curious to see ratings, but I know none of that gets released.
That's just perfect because 10 o'clock should be the time Sunday Night Football is ending. Ish.
True. So, very true. So
I don't care with my team playing tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. The Detroit Lions kick off the season at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Gonna put the whole league on those.
Another podcast. Because I could really dive in. We could break that one down probably better than how I break down most of the soccer matches, if I'm being honest. But John, I'm just going to put this out here, point blank period. I expect Lexington to win that game. No ifs, ands, ors, or buts about it. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, well, they're resting, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. Fuego's best player is off in college. He's not playing with the team right now, I believe, unless something has changed. Fuego is still at the bottom of the table with them. Coach Stockley, your boys need to get it together and go in there and knock them off. I think they should win. I want to see them win 4 or 5-0 because I think Fuego is that bad. I will go a little more conservative and I'll say 2-0 for that one. John, how do you see this matchup with Fuego going for Lexington?
Like you said, I think they should dominate this. They dominated the last matchup. They let in 2 goals late, but it's still a very dominant performance. I can see it 3-1 sort of range for Lexington for that. I definitely expect to see Josh Head make an appearance in that game because he got taken out on the road trip. He's officially in the 18 for NoCo, so he's with the team at least for the road trip. So I hope he is in there for this matchup. I'd be very curious of how it goes. Lexington has fully separated themselves from Fuego.
Yes,
they are still 9th Lexington fans, but that's just because there was these weird gaps in the table for a while, and Lexington has moved itself closer to the top and separated itself from the bottom too.
Yeah, and they've got to keep showing that difference, right? Because if you don't, and things go go sideways again, it's going to be very difficult for me to continue to believe that this team has potential. Again, I know there's nothing happening this year. No shot they make the playoffs this year. But for future years, this is a building game. Like, it sounds so simple. Like, this is another bottom feeder team in the league. Like, they should be dominant in this game. But this is such a huge building block for next year. If you can already establish yourself as better than them, you're going to put yourself in a good position for next year.
True, and we will see, because the league is weird. Like, the Kickers and Red Wolves both had really good seasons last year, and they are below Lex right now, and they're very much different teams. So we will see.
Yeah, and every time we play Richmond, it seems like they play their best game of the year. Strange.
Well, the first time we played Richmond was actually good. So we'll see. But yeah, they need to win that. They need to have positive results these next two matches. I would be fine with a draw tonight and a win on Sunday, but it needs to be like a win-draw situation. If they win against NoCo, I will personally, I will take a draw against Fuego if we beat NoCo, but it should be best case scenario, in my opinion, or most realistic, is a draw and a win over this week.
Yeah,
for Lex.
I agree with you. I think
that's the realistic one, but I can see them winning both.
Yeah, I can see it being them winning both. I can see them drawing one of them. Maybe they draw tonight. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I think you have to walk out of this weekend with 4 points just to continue to build momentum for next year.
Exactly.
But that game is now set to kick off in any moment now. We still have a lot of show to go. So, John, we haven't talked about Lou City yet. Oh my. I was getting ready to close out and talk about our college teams. Speaking of playing out in Colorado, Lou City just played there this past weekend, where they played the Colorado Switchbacks to a thrilling 3-2 victory for
Which
Lou
I will
City.
say,
yes,
the Switchbacks name is Alphabet Soup, but they do got a nice they do got nice kids.
They do, and that stadium is very
black
nice.
Kids were very nice.
And no, I don't hate Lou City. Stop. I just forgot, because so in my order that I had it, I had left them at the top, and then I had scrolled down and had just forgot to go back to the top. But Lou City, y'all know, much love. It was a great road win for Lou City. Great to see them hang on to it. You know, they really they got up 3-1. Colorado Springs got that late goal to get back into the match at 3-2, and Lou City just had to hang on for dear life. Lou City Academy prospect Carlos Miguel Jr. Registered his first assist with a club, setting up a goal for Gonzalez and Winder. So it was good to see the young kid getting in there and producing so well. They really bounced back from conceding that late goal in their last match to really show how much grit they have and resilience that they possess. The victory continues Lou City's strong recent performance, taking points in 6 out of the last 7 matchups, pushing them even more solidly into 4th place in the playoff standings. And playing at altitude, John, that's nothing. Have you ever been to Colorado or Denver or anything like that? I guess Denver is in Colorado, so I should have said another state like Wyoming or something like that.
I have been west of the Mississippi one time, and I was 2.
Wow.
So I do not remember it.
Well, the altitude is nothing to mess with. I went there for a conference to Denver and wound up getting altitude sickness, and it was not fun. But playing at altitude has a big impact on, kind of how the ball feels. It's kind of like baseball, right? Like the Colorado Rockies, more people hit home runs in their ballpark than in any others because the ball is lighter, the air is lighter, it travels further. So I really want to praise Simile from in that match because he had 5 saves in that matchup. Yes, he led in 2, but Colorado Springs was really pushing him for a lot of the match. And especially there were a couple of periods where it was they had a couple of consecutive opportunities in a row, and it was really good to see him show up and keep the score as low as he could. The
He played
win.
well. It's also with Winder and I forget his name, the academy player. It's very
Monagle.
Yeah, Monagle. It's very nice to see because it's the issue when Lou was struggling was people were saying they were relying too heavy on vets, and It's very good to see that the young talent Cruz is bringing in, or it seems to be putting more pressure on, are stepping up to that challenge and delivering.
And Martin, he was better. He looked more confident in that match. Again, I said the win keeps 7 in a row, or 6 out of 7 with points with 7 games remaining. Momentum seems to be shifting back to Lou City sideline. Coach Cruz really praised his team for their fight and their mentality for the 90 plus minutes. And he talked a lot about how maintaining that mentality is going to be key moving forward. So, John, for me, overall, it was a really good performance by Lou City, securing 3 road points against a team that has playoff implications for themselves. And it really just showed the quality that Lou City has. What did you see from that match?
From what I saw, it was Lou City. This is very similar to the Lexington Fuego match. Lou City dominated. The switchbacks were just kind of off foot the whole time. Yes, they got in 2 goals, but they were kind of meaningless because Lou was still dominant. This is one of the games where Lou City is dominant offensively, very much controlling the game, and Colorado just had the right counterattacks, like 2 good counterattacks, 2 good moments, and they capitalized on it. That's why it was so close. But the game was not as close as the scoreboard shows.
Right. It was a much more dominant performance by Lou City than what the scoreline suggests, like John just said. So, John, now moving to this weekend where Lou City has a critical playoff matchup it's a 2 versus 4 matchup right now in the standings as they travel down to Tampa to take on the Rowdies in what should be one of, if not the game of the year in the USL champion. When you're kind of looking at this matchup and you're looking at how both teams are entering, both teams got a little bit of momentum coming in. Trying to find the table, or I'm sorry,
Tampa. Well, I don't think Tampa Bay has that much momentum coming in because they did just barely beat a Hartford side that was depleted of most of their team because of COVID.
Right. Yeah.
They barely beat them, and they are currently in Memphis, tied 1-1. They just started the second half. So Lou City's probably sitting watching this game. So Tampa Bay is coming into Tampa after playing a midweek match. So they're both basically traveling teams, in my opinion. If you're coming back home after a midweek match, you're basically a traveling team, especially on Saturday.
So what did you say that scoreline was?
It's 1-1 against Memphis at the start of the second half.
Because Tampa was on a 4-game winning streak, beating Monterey Bay, Tulsa, Miami, and Hartford. Now, let's also be very clear. Those are
Hartford
not
was
the top
COVID.
tier.
Hartford's team was heavily depleted by COVID. That's why I say they don't have momentum, at least offensively, because they should have dominated that game.
In the last 4 matches, they've scored, what is that, 10 goals in 4 matches? Like, I think that I don't know how you're
Monterey
not
Bay
saying
ain't
it.
that good.
No, they're
Some of these
trash.
teams ain't
Tulsa's
that
not good. Miami is awful, and I can't wait for them to collapse.
So, truly, is it they've been dominating, or have they just had a good run of late against teams that are struggling? They're playing a playoff team right now with Memphis.
Right.
And they're tied.
But
1-1.
You play the teams that are in front of you, right? Like,
True.
Yeah, it sucks that Hartford had a COVID outbreak and they had several players out, right?
And you should
You
have
still got to play that game.
You should have dominated that game.
The other team comes out there knowing I ain't got nothing to lose, so they play with their hair on fire, very much like I think Lexington will come out tonight and play like. And Hartford gave them probably Hartford's best performance of the year. All disrespect meant by that. So, like, it's not a matchup that inspires a lot of, I don't know, man. Like, I think Tampa is still doing what they have to do. Like, I'm not overly concerned that Tampa's coming into this struggling.
What they have to do. I'm not saying they're struggling. I don't think they have as much momentum as the paper would suggest. I don't think they're having those wins, but I don't think they're like. If I'm Lou City, I'm not that scared. I'm treating them as a legit opponent who's better than us, but I'm not like, oh, they're rolling type thing. It's like, oh, we're having to stop like a steam engine. No. Type thing. You're stopping a quality side that's had a good run of form type thing. I don't think they're like dominating, if that makes sense.
I disagree, man. I think Tampa all year has been on a roll, and this is the match that I have had circled on my calendar for the entire season. Just putting this in context, that this isn't the all end all be all stat. Y'all know I ain't that kind of guy, right? Total goals for Tampa Bay 45. Lou City 31. Goal difference Tampa Bay plus 21. Lou City 0. They have 10 more assists, Tampa does, than Lou City.
Noco is the same way with Lex.
Yeah, but I don't
Lex
know.
has a negative goal differential.
Okay, now you're making me regret my
overly
pick.
critical. I think you're being a little overly critical. That's the thing. I'm still saying Tampa is a good quality side.
Yeah.
However, at this stage, I think they're not as. They have this good run of form, but I think it's more of a smoke screen of a dominant team versus a good team right now, where Lou City can win and could dominate Tampa. Could. Yeah.
Now, if you're looking at the head-to-head history of these two teams, right? Just looking at the last 5 here, Tampa won 3 in a row, the first 3, but Lou City has won the last 2 in a row. One of those, I believe, was the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Yeah, in November 2022. So Lou City has the competition advantage by winning 2 in a row the last 2 matchups. But I just really think that Lou City is going to have to come out, play with their hair on fire. I got to get a better analogy. It's the third time I've used that in the same podcast. But they got to come out playing great. Otherwise, Tampa's going to smoke them out. Like, I
don't think they're gonna smoke them out. I think Lou City, if they lose, it's gonna be like by a goal, like 2-1 Tampa type thing. If they lose, I don't think Tampa is gonna roll them.
I think Coach Cruz has his guys heading in the right direction right now. Where I agree, I don't think that Tampa's going to roll up 4-0 over them or anything like that. Also, that would be a historic storyline for Tampa to beat Lou City in that way, because Lou City has very rarely ever been beaten like a drum like that. So that would be catastrophic. But I really think this has got 2-2 draw written all over it. Somebody's going to get a late equalizer and just completely demoralize the other side. Uh, I hope that Lou City is up late and can hold on. If Oliver can keep the back line organized and can continue to make saves like he was doing at NoCo, or I'm sorry, not NoCo, at Colorado Springs, I think he would be well nominated for Player of the Week or Player of the Month, kind of a thing, Team of the Month at least. But it's going to be a long fought battle. I'm going to go 2-2 as the final. John, how are you thinking that one's going to turn out?
I can say 2-2, but I think Lou can pull it our way. I'm thinking 2-1 Lou.
2-1 Lou. Well, okay. Now we can move on to our college ranks. It has been a very busy week. And we want to kind of start off by just kind of setting the stage for a couple of things, right? So, first off, for our D1 schools, we do have 2 of them that are ranked. They did play last night. We have the University of Louisville, who is ranked 7th, and then the University of Kentucky, who is ranked 9th. And those rankings are definitely going to change after Louisville's dominant performance over UK last night. I can easily see Louisville jumping up into the top 3 as opposed to, Kentucky's going to drop out.
Yeah, Kentucky's definitely going to drop out. Which it's weird. They're struggling as right. They don't have an offense. They have no attack. They're so defensively. Yes, they got too late in that matchup against Lou, but there's no offense. There's no attack. They barely beat Eastern Tennessee.
Yep.
They lost to Wisconsin by letting in a goal in the 2nd minute.
Yep.
So they had 88 minutes.
Yep. Then they couldn't
find another goal. They have been shut out. There's no offense, and I don't get it.
Those rankings, just so everyone is aware, that was from the United Soccer Coaches poll. That's where we were getting those numbers from. But I think it's been a clear and obvious picture since the first matchup of the season that Louisville was going to win this game. They had a better performance in their opener and in their second matchup than UK has had all year. Louisville is playing harder opponents. They're showing their resilience. I really think this Louisville team is going to challenge Syracuse for the ACC title. And I think they're almost a lock if they keep playing this good, right? Almost a lock for the NCAA tournament.
I want to see how Lou does again in the ACC because the ACC is very good.
And they even played.
So we'll see.
Indiana.
Could just be a hot start.
Yeah.
Could just be a hot start. Kentucky, I don't know which team it was. It might have been Kentucky women's, started last year, and they won they dominated non-conference and then just got steamrolled by conference play. They didn't win at all. They had all but one win in their entire year was non-conference play. So,
and that's kind of what's happening on the women's side with WKU, right? They've had a not great start. So we're really hoping, down here, fingers crossed, right, that we can transition over, and Coach Nadell and his team have traditionally done that. They've dominated conference play, but they have had a rough start to their season. But we'll get to those full notes here in a moment. Before we do that, though, John, you had mentioned earlier some notes about the NAIA rankings. What were those?
Yes. So, as you stated earlier, we do the United Soccer Coaches poll. We don't do That's the only poll we follow. That's the one we do. They rank everyone down, even to high school. Like St. Xavier in Louisville is ranked 12th nationally right now. They're the
which
only
is
Kentucky team.
Unfathomable. Like, good job.
They were not ranked previously.
Yeah.
But there's other polls out there. I don't know if people noticed when from Lou's Twitter account, they were saying Kentucky was 5th.
Yeah.
Even though on the video feed,
it clearly said otherwise.
It was 19th, which you can't put out a video that says Kentucky 19 and then say, we're up on 5th rank. Like, that is just trying to, like, look, we're beating a team, we're upsetting. It's like, no, you're supposed to win by rankings. You're supposed to win that. Now, granted, going into that matchup, literally, that ranking was dropped the day of. So it
was dropped like a few hours before.
Yeah, going into that matchup, Lou was 13th.
Yes,
and Lex and UK was 2nd,
and
then it changed because it gets dropped at like 4 p.m. Eastern.
Like, I think Tuesday. The teams were probably warming up or at least arriving at the stadium when they dropped.
Yeah, but the NAIA dropped their official first thing non-preseason of the season today. With that, Lindsey Wilson has moved up to number 5th. They're number 5 in the country, and Cumberland and Union College on the men's side. These are all men's sides. Are getting votes. Cumberland's right there. Union's a little behind. And then on the women's, Cumberland moves up from 4th to 2nd in the country.
Number 2 in the nation.
Yep, Campbellsville drops down from 20th to 24th, and Lindsey Wilson on the women's side also gets votes.
Absolutely. So, congratulations to those teams for being ranked right now. We're going to continue to follow it. And John, just to kind of emphasize your point here before we move on, the University of Louisville did release another graphic yesterday. Don't have the timestamp.
I think people were telling them, it was like, hey guys, your video says Kentucky's 19th. Your Twitter says they're 5th. What's up?
Well, even more confusing.
There's 3 rankings.
Yeah. There's the 3 rankings that they released. The United Soccer coaches. Go for it.
Which college football has that. There's the AP, there's the coaches, there's these other stuff. But college football also follows one. This is the one. There's these other ones, and you can take some thing with this is the one. There's the AP poll in college football, and then when the playoff committee meets, the AP poll still ranks people. The AP poll still does.
Nobody
even when
cares.
The playoff, no one cares after that.
Nope.
So this is a thing where United, from all I can see, is the United Soccer Coaches is the one that the NCAA follows. What they release is what the NCAA considers their top 25 or so teams. Yep. So that's who we follow.
And then there's also a college soccer news and another one called Top Drawer Soccer. It's strange. But so we are only going to be...
Top Drawer Soccer hides their stuff behind the paywall. So
get out of here, Top Drawer. So then we will only use the United Soccer coaches rankings for the D1, but for some of the other ones we will kind of interweave
United Soccer Coaches does it all.
Oh, that's right, you did say that.
We are only using United Soccer Coaches. Yep. So if you see a ranking somewhere else for a school, check what they are ranked in United Soccer Coaches when we report something, because that is what we use.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's the graphic. I literally just had that pulled up. So, John, then let's move over and let's kind of talk about some of the College Cup. As we talked about last week, we at the Bluegrass Soccer Cast are going to be tracking some different stats and figures and stuff like that for the Commonwealth. I'll kick us off by talking about our top 5 teams in the Commonwealth. And again, briefly going over what I talked about last week. It's a traditional point system, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, but you get bonus points if you beat other in-state teams. So if you have an in-state win, you get 6 total points. If you have an in-state draw, you get 2 points. You get 1 for the draw, and then you get the 1 for the bonus point draw. So with all of that in mind, your new top 5 for this week, according to the Bluegrass Soccer Cast. Number 1, University of Kentucky women's team with 19 points. Number 2, Campbellsville men jumping all the way up to number 2 with 18 points. Another big jumper, Georgetown women jumping up to tied number 2 with 18 points. And then we have 3 teams tied at 4th. We have the University of Louisville men's, who this doesn't include the victory last night. That will be included in next week's rankings. They currently sit tied at 4th with 12 points. University of Cumberland women's also with 12 points. And Union College, welcome to the top 5. Your men's team sits with 12 points. And Bellarmine women, you are literally 1 point out from making this list. So we will continue to track that every week, and we'll get that updated for you all. Working on a graphic as well, so we can get that out there. But we're doing what we can to track and support all college soccer here in our beautiful Commonwealth. And John, you have been doing that for the Golden Glove and the Golden Boot.
Yes. So, the Golden Boot and track. This is pretty straightforward. Who scores the most goals? We're using assists as tiebreakers. So, if somehow someone at the end of the year is tied on goals, assists play into that factor. Then I'm not doing an assist leader because college does hockey assists.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard and that also requires sometimes that's more to the stat keeper of who decides that. It's a lot like because of the hockey assist thing. So it's a little wishy-washy on that. And then Golden Glove, we're doing saves, just straight the number of saves you make because college soccer is really weird. You can have a really good keeper that doesn't really that could still get scored on a bunch because they have no defense in front of them. So shutouts is the tiebreaker for the saves, but shutouts aren't like what we're doing. We're not doing saves per 90 or whatever that type of thing is. And for the Golden Glove, I am doing the one keeper per school. So it is the keeper who has the most saves for that school. If they're doing a platoon system and all of a sudden another keeper starts making a bunch of saves, I might add them in, but it's hard. And there's also some schools I don't have any data on. Right. Alice Lloyd, just a call out to anyone. I have messaged both your athletic department and SDI. Have heard nothing from them. Their stats they don't even have up-to-date schedule on their website yet. They've been playing. We know they play, but they don't have a schedule on their website. Boys college is pretty good with their schedule, but they don't release box scores. I can only find a box score for one of their games out of the 3 they've played, so I don't have that accurate of stats for them. Kentucky Christian doesn't release proper stats for one of their teams. Union doesn't release stats for their women's teams, on a sheet as stats. You can still get them through box scores. So there's some that are a little shaky, and also D2 and D3 haven't played that many games. NAIA has played almost 8 games. Yeah. So some of this stuff is kind of everywhere, but towards the end it will kind of shake out. And this is only regular season. So the Golden Boot top 5 is Felix Bobenk. I can say this of Campbellsville men. He has 7 goals and 2 assists on the season. Then Jordan Rhodes of UK women, who has 6 goals, 0 assists on the season. Carson Smith of Georgetown women has 5 goals, 3 assists on the year. Sebastian Tregarth, I don't know how to pronounce this. Of Lindsay Wilson. Men has 5 goals, 0 assists on the year. He is 5th because Angeline Key of Campbellsville University women has 5 goals, 1 assist on the year. So Sebastian is fifth because he doesn't have an assist. But there's multiple. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 people with 4 goals on the year. There's a bunch with 3s. So there's plenty of people in it. Felix has just feasted on people.
7 goals. How many matches?
I want to say 6.
Wow, almost over won a game.
Yeah, I think he has a hat trick or 4-goal one in there. Rhodes has scored in 6 straight or 5 straight matches. She's only scored 2 and 1 against Murray, so it's a little like picking on some of these weaker teams. Golden Glove is a little more.
Don't call my Racers a weaker team. I'll come up fighting.
You lost to the one in the UK. You're weaker than UK.
It was a great game. Did you watch it? It was very competitive.
Game, but they're by record. They are weaker by your little cup standings.
Speaking of Lexington being weaker, 1-0 Hailstorm.
Yes, off of another cross. But that was like perfect one-touch type cross thing. Knight could have. It was a weird angle. Anyways, Golden Glove is actually currently the top 5 are all women.
Let's go. The future is women.
Ashby Greenwell of Brescia, I believe I'm saying that well.
Brescia
has 37 saves in 3 games. She has allowed like 8 goals though, so I'm not like. She has. This is the example of no defense in front of you. She has 37 saves in 3 matches. It's just insane. And then Michaela Kowalski of NKU has 30. Tiara Istanto of Union Women has 27. Oh, Michaela also has 3 shutouts. Maddie Davis of WKU has 22 saves with 3 shutouts. And then Gabby Durison of Lindsey Wilson has also 22 saves, but she only has 1 shutout. Ern Gibbs of Moorhead's right behind them in 6th with 21 saves and 1 shutout. The first
Eagles actually have somebody.
The first men player doesn't appear till Christian Alliser of Kentucky Christian with 19 at 7th. But there is almost a 20 saves difference. Like Greenwell has 7 more saves than 2nd place.
Jeez, what a monster in the pipe!
That's 3 games.
Yeah,
3 games. And like, there's some others like, so with some of these weird exhibition matches for one school versus an official match, like Kayla Simmons of Berea had like 15 saves in the blowout loss to Georgetown, but that's not an official match for Berea. So I am going off of stats reported by the school. So whatever the school says is the official stat that we report, that is who they're doing. I'm not going like, well, in this case, Kyla Simmons, well, she got 12 saves and it was an exhibition match for her, but an official match for Georgetown. Like, no. Whatever is considered official through the school is what we'll do. And that's why I can't track Alice Lloyd or Boyce College, because they don't produce their stats officially.
Because your websites are trash.
If it's in a box score where I can get it, and neither side is labeled as exhibition, I will consider both sides as official. Like Boyce has some kid named like something St. Louis. He has 3 goals on the year, and he got those 3 against Mount St. Joseph. But that's all I know. That's the only game out of there, like 3 or 4. And yes, I want to point out obvious. Yes, our score report technically is not up to date because it came out after Labor Day, and then the teams played on Labor Day. But our thing is strictly by week. So while we may release it in the middle of the week, that's more to just kind of break up the articles and stuff.
Absolutely. So, John, then speaking of articles, let's just kind of walk people through our article that we had wrote and talk about how teams have been doing over the last week or so. Again, we're going to give you some overviews, kind of dive in a little bit, but not too much because there's a lot to get in with just the D1 schools. I'll kick us off here talking about Bellarmine. Their men's team, again, at least as of Monday morning when this article was submitted, was 0 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. Is that the format we're using?
I do win, draw, loss.
Oh no, then because I do the opposite. I flip that. Oh no.
I do traditionally. And I even put that in the little comments. Record is presented in win. Oh no, someone corrected it.
Win, loss, draw. Okay.
I put win. I need mine are wrong then, but I can fix that as I say it.
So we're just going to talk about the results. It's a work in progress. You all know what, some days we drive the struggle bus, sometimes we ride the success
The
bus.
schools, for those who look up the stats, the schools do win, loss, draw.
Yeah.
Traditional soccer is win, draw, loss.
Right. So Bellarmine, last Monday they had a 3-0 defeat to Louisville in what we are calling the Derby City Derby. I don't remember, John, was that you that came up with that, or was that someone else?
Someone on Twitter mentioned it, but he mentioned it in like 5 or 6 suggestions as well, and we just went with that one.
Yeah, I just love that. So not a great performance by Bellarmine, but at least on the scoreboard, but really it was a lot closer than that. Bellarmine had a lot of chances that they just couldn't quite convert. Again, the Louisville men's team is legit, clearly based on the result over UK on Labor Day. It wasn't as terrible as the scoreline might suggest. The head coach at Bellarmine, Tim, not going to try your last name. Sorry, Tim. He said he was proud of how his team competed in the second half and created some opportunities against a quality opponent. So, from the coaching staff's perspective, they were quite pleased with it. And then they moved on to a matchup last Friday, which was a 2-2 draw against Purdue Fort Wayne, formerly Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne, the Mastodons, now just Purdue Fort Wayne. And this was a really good showing by Bellarmine to come out and get the draw. They showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit to fight back and get that dramatic 2-2 draw on the road. So overall, the record may not be what they want in Bellarmine's case, but they have shown a lot of heart and a lot of grit to get to where they are. And they had great opportunities against the Mastodons, and they converted to get the draw. So not the best week last week, but it could have been a lot worse for them. Now, moving over to the Bellarmine women's side, who are on a bit of a burner themselves, they took on the University of Evansville, where they beat them 2-0 last week. A pretty good performance by the Bellarmine women. Again, they're a team that's still transitioning from D2 up to Division 1, but you wouldn't know it based on how they're playing this year. They had a very dominant performance in that victory over Evansville. And then they had another really good performance over the weekend against Chicago State. The player for Bellarmine, Lauren Bingham, had a brace in that game, scoring both the goals for them. And they had to hold on to it, but they were able to secure the victory over Chicago State 2-1. John, let's jump over to Eastern Kentucky.
EKU is 1-3-1 if we're doing win-loss draw, but they got They fell last Thursday to DePaul, which DePaul is team. Their name is the Dibs, which stands for like devilish. Let me double check. It's a really stupid name. So it's DIBS. So demon in a blue suit is DePaul's nickname, but they call themselves the Dibs, DIBS, demon in a blue suit.
Did they change that? Because it used to be like the Demon Deacons or something like that.
No, the Demon Deacons are another school.
Oh, was that Wake Forest? Duke? I
Yes,
don't know.
Wake Forest was the Demon Deacons, and now they're just the Deacons because they dropped Demon.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense.
They lost to that. Ruby Dunleavy got her second goal of the season to open up scoring, but they sadly the Paul got a comeback. Their coach has spoken on this before. He purposely chose a rough non-conference to prep them for the ASUN. But they did get their first win on Sunday afternoon against Eastern Michigan. 2-1, a late comeback with some really good goals in that match to finally get their first win. They fell back. They fell behind 1-0, but it could have been a lot worse. Melanie McCowan got her first start. She made 6 of her 9 saves in the first half alone. Also, I forgot to mention this with DePaul. Greta Gunn got an assist in both these two games. She is now the Colonel's all-time leader in assists.
Wow. History being made right here.
Yep. Kyla Fitzgerald picked up the equalizer on a weird, bounces off of her hip goal in front of the net. And then Peyton Payne had, an insane goal for her first ever in college to lift the Colonels to their first ever win of the season, and they will take on NKU in a very in-state clash tomorrow at 4.
So that will definitely be a matchup to watch. John, let's keep your momentum rolling. Let's talk about UK.
So obviously we've talked about the loss. So Kentucky is they're 2-2-0 right now if you count the Louisville loss in there. Their wins were against Florida Gulf Coast, and they squeaked over Charlie Machel's alma mater, Eastern Tennessee State, with a very late winner in
They were quite lucky to win it.
Yeah, 87th minute. But then they fell on the road to Wisconsin. I talked about this. They just have no offense right now, and they obviously lost to Louisville. And then they'll play Lipscomb on Friday at home at 7:30. And then the women
don't sleep
are
on
actually
Lipscomb,
off.
man. Lipscomb's got a great program.
Lipscomb's actually
they
really
have
good
a guy,
soccer.
Will Bryan. He played for the Bowling Green Golden Lions this past season. The Red Dragon. I'm telling you now, if he is on form, he will put a goal in on UK.
We will see. The women, however, are rolling. They have not lost a game. They've gone on a 5-match unbeaten run. Their only non-win was a draw against Valparaiso last week, which we talked about. Paraiso, that's what it is. UK dominated UT Martin this last Thursday, 4-0, just rolling through them. And then for Senior Day, which very weird to have Senior Day so early.
That was odd.
Typically, it's the last home game. Well, I know some coaches will pick Senior Day to be like a game that they will for sure win or they should win.
Right.
And to be like a positive note type day, but it was just kind of early. But 1-0 winning that. Obvious person who scored was Jordan Rose, who's now just 2 goals behind Kim LaBelle's 44 for the all-time in UK women's history. And they have 2 matches this week. They play Belmont tomorrow at 7:30, and then they will go out to Iowa State on Sunday and play at 2 p.m. Eastern.
And I truly hope they beat the brakes off those Cyclones. Go Hawks. We'll shift now. Speaking of teams that are blowing people out and undefeated, let's talk about the Louisville men's team. Last week, they had a 3-0 victory over Bellarmine. We talked about it on the Bellarmine side, now talking about it from the Louisville side, as they were victorious in the Derby City Derby. They outshot. Where's it at? There it is. They outshot Bellarmine 17-5, with 8 shots on target compared to only 1 for Bellarmine. So it was an offensive barrage from Louisville. Gage Guerrera was the first goal scorer for them. Rode added 1, and so did Quentin Elliott. So good for them to go up 3-0 and to hang on for the victory. They then headed off to UNC Greensboro. Why does that not feel right? That's who they played, right? Yeah, UNC Greensboro, where the Cardinals continued their unbeaten streak with a 2-0 victory. It was another really good performance, very similar to how UK went and played UTC. It was a similar kind of matchup. UNC Greensboro, usually a pretty good program. All those North Carolina schools are usually pretty good. But it was great to see Louisville get another victory on there. This victory marked the first time the Cardinals have kicked off the season with 3 consecutive clean sheets since 2009. Now, we know that has continued to balloon to 4 after what happened against UK.
That wasn't a clean sheet.
Oh, no, it wasn't, was it? So it stopped there. Again, Gage was the one who scored the first goal, getting them up to that 1-0. And the team really hung on pretty much after that and just prepared for that big matchup against UK, which we will talk about on next week's show. The women, however, are quite the antithesis of the men's team, as they have not been playing nearly as well. Last week, they had a 2-1 loss to Illinois, falling at home to Illinois, and just really not playing well. There was not any stat category that they were better than the Illini in that game. Yes, they got the first goal, but wound up losing 2-1 in that one. Now, they did play a lot better against Eastern Michigan with a 3-0 victory. But this was kind of a matchup just to see if the Cardinals had any kind of a pulse, and they do. So it was good to see them come back to life a little bit and get that victory from there. John, let's head out to Moorhead and talk about the Eagles. You had already kind of mentioned they've got a pretty good keeper out there.
Yes. So Moorhead has they have a decent keeper in Ern Gibbs, who's really been the only shining star so far, as they are 1-3-1. They get their first shutout of the year in a 0-0 draw against Wright State, but that is the second straight match without a goal for them. Then they did get a goal against Austin Peay.
Flush that P.
On Sunday, but they lost 2-1 to Austin Peay. It's just been rough of late. Hida Olgenberg did get her second goal of the season in that matchup, and they will have 2 interstate matchups this week against Bellarmine, and then on Thursday, and then against NKU on Sunday.
And hey, if they can win both of those, that's 6 total points. No, I'm sorry, that'd be 12 points in the what are we calling it again? The BGSC College Cup. Like that could be a big jump up. So if they're in the top 5 next week, they had some 2 victories. We'll move all the way across the state and talk about my Murray State Racers, who did not start the week out at all on a good note. They had a 1-0 defeat to Lindenwood, who is a relatively new Division I program. They play in the Ohio Valley Conference, where Murray State was dominant for generations. And in the 83rd minute, Lindenwood and Murray seemed to be heading towards a draw, but Lindenwood was able to net home a goal, dropping the Racers to 1-4-0 at that time. They then moved on to the weekend, where they played their former Ohio Valley rivals, UT Martin, and the Racers got their first road victory of the season. This one was 2-1 over UT Martin. The victory comes in the stretch of 3 of 4 road games in a row. They will now head to the daunting task of taking on Oklahoma down in Norman, Oklahoma this week. And I hope that Coach Lodge and the rest of the team make it back in one piece. John, what about Northern?
The men got their first draw city, as they have had 2 straight draws, and they drawed Bellarmine on Monday. They did not play any matches last week. As we stated, they drew with Bellarmine on Monday night. But they will host Robert Morris on Saturday at home at 7 p.m. The women are also a little shaky. They are they have only lost 1 match, but they've tied a lot. They're 1-1-3. They went up to Ohio and tied them. They've had 3 straight shutouts with senior Michaela Kowalski playing out of her mind. She made 12 saves in the draw against Ohio, and then that was their only match of the week. They will have, as we've said before, they are playing 2 interstate teams. They play EKU Thursday and Moorhead Sunday.
And for the audio listeners, John's frick was to Hailstorm 2, Lexington 0. Not going how I thought that would go at all.
We've been down 2 before. It's fine.
Absolutely. Speaking about being down, I'm trying not to be too harsh with the WKU Lady Hilltopper soccer team, as they currently have a putrid record of 1 win, 1 draw, and 4 losses. They had a very disappointing 0-0 draw with Northern Alabama. Not a whole lot to say. Maddie, the goalkeeper, she's pretty good, but the Toppers have to find an offense. I was incorrect when I said they are 1 win, 4 draws, 1 loss. My apologies to the Toppers. Maddie Davis was the reason that the Toppers had that draw against North Alabama, getting her second shutout of the season, making 6 total saves in that game. But overall, it was not a great performance by the Toppers, and they didn't look much better over the past weekend when they played Belmont, another 0-0 draw. So again, congratulations to Maddie Davis for keeping another clean sheet. But the Lady Toppers can't buy offense at this point, and things are getting a little tight around the Topper program. They have 2 more matchups before heading into conference play, and conference play is traditionally where Coach Nadell and the team have picked up multiple wins and been able to start making a run. But they need some victories starting this week when they head to the University of Evansville. and then they stay in Indiana on Sunday as they play Purdue, which would be a great time to get an upset victory over a Big Ten program. However, I am not as hopeful for that. But Jon, with that, that will take us to the end of our show for today. I want to thank you all for sticking around and watching. As always, if you enjoy the content on our show, we have a Buy Me Coffee account. It's right up there. It's a QR code. We can also put it on the screen here. If you would like to support the show, we greatly appreciate any and all the folks who have donated and have contributed. We're always going to keep the show for free, but any kind of donation is always very much appreciated. And with all of that out of the way, Jon, I want to say thank you to you for joining me on another show. Make sure that you check us out on all of our social media handles like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, whatever we're supposed to call it now, at BG Soccercast, as well as make sure you're giving this podcast a listen on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, YouTube, and so many others. When you're there, please make sure you rate, like, subscribe, share, follow, do all of that fun stuff. That's Jon. I'm Jimmie, and we will see you on the next one.